Thursday the 14th of December, Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine. What happened to the rest of Naz after you left? Do you know at all?
I've heard rumors. The latest rumor I heard is that Tom Mooney is playing with Roger McGuinn. As I saw Carson many years ago, when I was living in California, he was working for Walt Disney for a while doing first he started out drawing Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck comic books for foreign distribution. And then he worked his way up to the animation department. I don't know whether he's still there or not. Stuckey, I've heard various unconfirmed rumors, but nothing definite. I haven't seen it.
So they don't keep in contact with you, really?
No.
How was working with Utopia? How did you get on with the other members in the band?
Which version? We started quite a while ago.
Yeah. Today's version.
Today's version gets along fairly well. We have a unique working relationship because everyone is involved in solo interests. So that's not the same as a band that's solely dedicated to the band's activities. So if there's any conflict at all, it's usually scheduling. It's not interpersonal. We don't really have any personal gripes with each other, I think, at this point.
And what happened to the old Utopia?
Various people dropped out for various reasons. Mostly because they wanted to get involved in other things. For instance, the original drummer dropped out to become involved in his father's business, and keyboard players dropped out. Moogie and Ralph dropped out to get into producing and arranging sessions, respectively, and things like that.
Do you see any of those now?
Yeah, I see them on occasion. Most of the people, except I haven't seen Kevin the drummer for quite a while.
Are all your instruments custom made?
They're either custom made or custom adapted. Stock instruments that have had things done to them to make them more.
Like when you've done the Rata, the round guitar.
Yeah, those are custom made from scratch. But
who designed them?
I designed those particular instruments. But, I think your teas.
What strings do you use on your guitars?
I think they're called Ernie Ball string.
Are they a special make?
Yeah, they're not really that special. I suppose I would use any ones that were the right gauge. I don't pay that much attention. They're just regular round strings, and they're more or less the light gauge. Or super light gauge. They're not super duper light, but they're, the pretty much the lightest standard gauge.
And how long does a guitar normally last you? Or don't they wear enough?
I usually don't wear them out. The guitar that I was playing, that I played most recently for the longest continuous period, got stolen. Didn't get worn out. Blown away, so I would still be playing that one probably.
Yeah. But they don't actually wear out?
I don't think so. I suppose you could get bored with one, but I usually, if I find one I like, I play pretty much continuously.
Now, has the death of John Lennon affected you, and if so, how?
It hasn't especially affected me. There were weird circumstances and everything, but as much as I was a fan of the Beatles, I was not that much a fan of John Lennon's music as influenced by everything else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hope things for people if they don't hope for themselves. I wasn't expecting them to change into anything.
No.
So from a musical standpoint, it wasn't. It wasn't a personal blow to me, but I still.
I think it was still a shock to everybody.
Yes, I was shocked to hear it anyway. I have reminiscences, but I don't live in the past,
And was with the track LPs with the tunes written about John Lennon?
No, it wasn't.
Who was it? Was it written about anybody?
It was written about anybody.
Oh, anybody.
Yeah,
anyone trying to make records?
Yeah, well, anyone who has, who takes record making seriously to that extent.
But it wasn't directed at anybody in particular?
No. Most of the stuff that appears on my solo albums has some personal
and something you've been through, something you've experienced.
Yeah.
How is the world of video progressing for you personally?
It's progressing slowly but steadily. I haven't been in the video studio much the past couple of months because I've been involved in other things. First I had family matters, and then I finished a solo album, and now I'm producing records in order to keep the studio financially solvent. So I haven't had a chance to be in there a lot, but probably by the end of the summer I'm going to be doing a lot of work in the video studio.
And have you any plans for producing in the future, and if so, who?
I'm producing a number of bands now. I'm producing one now, and then I will be producing between now and the summer some other bands. I'm producing this band called Touch right now.
Is that an American band?
Yeah, they're American. Producing a band called New England after that. And then I'll be producing an English band called the Moondogs, a TV show, I understand. Taping a TV show that's supposed to be broadcast.
No, I've not heard of it.
Well, I hadn't heard of them either. But, it's probably their involvement in video that was the predicating factor in why I got involved in the production of the band.
Right. There are reports in the music press about B.B. Bjorn having a baby called Live.
Liv. Oh,
Liv.
Yeah.
Right. Is it true, and is it your baby?
It's true. Yes.
It's true.
Yeah.
And is it your baby?
Yes.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still see the baby?
On occasion. Not often. They live in Maine.
So you find it difficult to see?
Yeah.
Do you know of any plans for a European tour which will include Great Britain?
At this point, that we don't have any plans. It's something that's at this point financial questions have to be adequately.
So many people were disappointed when the autumn tour was cancelled.
Yeah, well, that was it. We just couldn't afford it. We lost so much money on our American tour and record company.
Well, it's just so expensive to go on the road.
It is. It's gotten more expensive. It's more expensive all over. Just traveling expensive. It's gotten really good, and if you don't have the if you're not sure they're going to sell out a certain number of shows, then you're most likely going to lose money doing it, which means you got to come up with the money somewhere. And we're at the end of our record contract at this point. There's only a year or less left in it. The company is not going to give you front money.
So you've got to start doing it yourself.
Either that, or I'm sure that there will be one forthcoming if we sign a new record contract. You know, a new record company will probably want to start a promotional push, so we'll get some financial backing for the following.
Now, when you were with the Nas,
Mm-hmm.
there was a big bio that was handed out by the record company.
Mm-hmm. And somebody.
Yeah, and it said on it that your favourite food was Chinese food.
Well,
Now, is it still your favourite food,
No,
or
I
has your
don't think
taste
so.
changed?
I like Indian food more than Chinese food.
You do.
Yeah. I like some kinds of Chinese food. But,
And what's your favourite colour?
beats me. I hadn't even thought about it.
I thought purple, because it
Purple's
seems to
a
be
nice-
the band colour.
Purple's a nice color. But I don't have, I guess my preferences, vary. I like colors in general.
Mm-hmm. And what about your favourite drink?
I don't drink.
No, it doesn't necessarily mean spirit, I mean juice.
Oh, well, I drink a lot of apple juice, I guess.
Yeah.
I go through, a quart a day at least.
Mm-hmm. And have you got a favourite article of clothing? Anything from your past?
From my past. Let me see.
That you like wearing?
Well, I go through phases. I usually wind up wearing the same thing for weeks at a time. I'll get attached to one thing and then wear it for a long time, like what I'm wearing now. I've been wearing for at least a week, so I guess I'm a slob in that sense. I just get temporarily attached to something until it's unwearable anymore, and then I'll move on to something else.
Have you got a favourite time of day?
If I have a favorite time of day, it's probably like around hour or two before sunset. I like it when the sun is low in the sky. I don't know, just a certain time of day I really like.
Now, do you remember meeting any of the people that you see when you go to concerts? Do you remember people's names or faces?
I remember people's faces. I'm terrible with names. I hardly ever remember names.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time remembering names of people that I have to associate with on a daily basis. But I'll remember the faces.
Uh-huh. So you can see who's regulars at your concerts?
Yeah. I guess I'm just not label oriented. I'm not oriented towards people's labels, so I can remember them.
Do you have a favourite Utopia track?
No, I can't say I do. I never single it down to one song.
What is your favourite piece of music?
I haven't, I just like a lot of different kinds of music. Different pieces from different styles. It's hard to say.
Have you any favourite anecdotes?
Favorites. Let me see. I don't know. I can't think of one offhand. I usually don't retell a certain anecdote over and over. It's hard to recall.
Do you think you take after your mother or your father?
I probably have acquired certain traits from both of them, but I'm not really a lot like either one of them. I'm quite a bit different from my parents and my siblings.
Mm-hmm. How many brothers and sisters have you got?
I have a brother and 2 sisters.
Many fan clubs in Great Britain are doing flexi discs at Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
We've had lots of letters asking about, are Utopia going to do flexi discs?
Well, you didn't even know about it, I guess. It's not.
Now, things such as the Beatles and the Police and the Osmonds.
Yeah.
I mean,
The Osmonds.
yeah. I mean, they're just so big, and it's a fan club done like by the record company, or the record company pays
Uh-huh.
for all the products, and so then you've got no problems. But when it's either the band has to pay for it
Uh-huh.
or the fan club, then it's quite expensive.
Uh-huh.
So what would your thoughts be on a flexi disc for Christmas? Just like singing Happy Christmas or something?
Yeah, well, I suppose there's a way that they could be pay for it. Flexi does those little,
Yeah, just the little thing.
like sort of paper printed on plastic sheet.
Mm.
I don't know what the economics of it are in England. I know that we've explored that on occasion here. Sometimes people use them as a promotion, and they'll actually include a record in a magazine, something like that. I always found them an interesting concept. I considered doing an album that way, but I don't know what the economics of it are in England, like how much it costs to do. It's hard to, it's impossible to say categorically that it can or can't be done, because it all depends on the economy, as they say, the transience of the economy.
What funds we have.
Yeah, what funds are available, whether the band has any funds. At this point, the band hasn't had any funds for nearly a year because of we went out on the road. Whenever we go out on the road, we always take a lot of equipment and try and put on a big show. Mm-hmm. We went out at what was the trough of touring. It was like the touring bust of last year, when all these bands went on the road and nobody sold any tickets because of so-called economic reasons or whatever. People just stopped going to concerts. And in our case, it was financially disastrous, left us in such a giant hole that we still haven't recovered from it yet. And every time we go out on tour, it's to pay off the debts of that tour at this point. So, we always like to get involved in things like that. We always spend extra money on our tours and would like to be able to do stuff, but you can't do it if you haven't got it. So it all depends. If we by some quirk of fate happen to have a hit record and a successful tour, we'd be in a position and probably would like to get involved in those extracurricular indulgences.
Where does Karen come from?
She grew up in Dallas, although she was, I think she was born in New Jersey and spent her early years in Rochester, New York, something like that.
Well, where did you meet her?
In Dallas.
In Dallas. What did Karen used to do before she became the Utopia Ballet and mother?
Well, for a long time she was Bruce Springsteen's girlfriend for a while, but immediately, probably, I guess about 6 or 8 months before she met me, that's what she was doing. And then she split up with him and moved to Texas.
Did you have any property returned from the robbery you suffered?
Nothing.
Nothing at all?
No.
I just thought perhaps something might have been found.
No, I didn't find anything. Didn't find any clues, didn't find a fingerprint, didn't find anything.
Where was the most memorable concert? Like somewhere you were really overwhelmed with the response you were getting from the audience. Can you think of something? Or is it every time?
We've had a lot of good ones. I think Cleveland we've always been really big in Cleveland. The last time we played there, we played outdoors, and we got a really nice response to some parts of that show.
So you quite enjoyed Cleveland.
Yeah.
Now, it's a little bit personal, isn't it? Very few rock stars continue a full musical career once they've reached 35. A survey statistic. Do you see yourself retiring in the near future, or you want to carry on as long as you can?
Well, I've never planned a conscious retirement, but I've always maintained that I wouldn't constantly be actively involved in the so-called rock and roll business or lifestyle. I'm just interested in other things, and I don't want to have those limitations imposed on me. I don't want to be like, a 50-year-old rock and roller, because it just seems like that point you become a novelty. You become like one of these revivalist, bebop group or something like that. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, what do you see happening?
well, in a certain sense, I've already kind of withdrawn from that. I don't like to make music that fits the normal. What happens usually, what's current, you know, in terms of musical style. I like to make more personal records,
Mm-hmm.
and I can always continue to do that. I think that musical artists who really, who are really committed musically to, a certain personal thing, will always continue to make records, whether or not they're commercial, whether or not they have great sales.
And what do you see in the future of music and video, the connection?
Well, I don't know, a lot of people have speculations about there being some, specific art form coming out of this, but I don't know that will be immediately forthcoming. There's not so much great music that merits the time, aggravation that's required to fuse it with video. So.
Do you go to the pictures very often to see the movies?
Every once in a while.
And have you got a favourite movie?
Favorite movie? It's hard to say. There's a lot of movies that I like. And I never single things out to favorites, I guess, because I'm always, analyzing and appreciating various aspects of different films, the different things in general, different records, different colors, different.
What do you think of fan clubs?
Well, it's, from a personal standpoint, I always consider it to be unrealistic to be on the receiving end of adulation or speculation by people who don't really know you, who don't know what you really like, what your real.
They only see you on the stage.
Yeah, they, essentially they have an image of what you're like, that they gain from your records or from seeing you on stage, which, however partially complete it might be, is never going to be absolutely accurate, because it's only a representation. And so, I've never been especially comfortable, being in that position. I can deal with it, but I don't feel that it's natural. That, it's a natural thing. A person that you don't really know to come up and start telling you things about yourself, that they've perceived, and you haven't perceived. But I think people are going to do it anyway. People are always going to be interested in what so-called artists are doing. And I think it's good for them, to be able to communicate with other people with like interests. But from my standpoint, the important thing is not necessarily the central figure or figures that the fan club has been based around, but degree of communication that the members can have between each other. I guess it's like the musician is just a common interest, but not necessarily end, the be all and end all of the, of the communication process.
Now, a lot of people would like to know, did you get your teeth fixed?
Depends to what degree they mean.
A lot of people have written in and said, the more recent photos of you, it looks as if you've had the gap in your teeth filled, or you've had your teeth
No,
straightened, or
no,
whatever.
they're just as crooked as they always were. I did have some work done on my teeth, but nothing that's visible to people.
Uh-huh. Just ordinary dentist.
Yeah.
Can you remember the nicest present that you'd ever been given by a fan?
Nicest present, that's too qualitative a judgment, I mean, it's hard to tell with
Well,
sincerity.
have you got something in mind that springs to mind that someone gave you and you thought, oh, that's really nice or something?
I've gotten some nice things. Sometimes, like, somebody who's an artist, will do something that's, an personal expression of their art, and if they do it really well, I really appreciate it. But it's really hard to say, what the degree of sincerity behind a gift is, how much it means to a person, in terms of a personal investment in what they've done. They may not have a great deal of skill, but their commitment might be greater. So it's hard to make that judgment.
Now, a track was written on Todd Rundgren's Utopia. I think it was the Utopia thing, which was attributed to somebody called Mason.
Called Mason?
It's on the album.
I think they might have it confused with Dave Mason, who was a keyboard player in the first original Utopia that never recorded anything, and he was the co-writer of the song. But
Oh, I see. So that's probably why they used it.
yeah, well, I don't recall any references to a tribute to any individual.
Laura Nyro's LP, Eli and the 13 Confessions. On the back there's a silhouette. Is that you and Laura? Or is it...
Oh no, I didn't know her at the time.
Was it Laura and somebody else?
I guess, I hadn't met her until after that album came out.
There's so many people.
Nope, that was before my time.
I've lost a bet.
I love these little pieces of mystique that,
I know, they just sort of crop up all over the place.
even though they aren't true, but
Yeah.
they're glamorous.
Is it true you recorded a disco record?
Yeah, one
it
time.
hasn't been released yet.
Oh yeah, I don't know whether I don't think it'll ever be released. I think Ferris will sort of consider it a tax write-off. But we just, for fun, over a 2-day period, recorded a disco album, like a dance record. This was before Chasm was in the band. But we wrote everything in 2 days and recorded it all. And had some funny stuff on it. Had a disco version of the Star Trek themes before any other disco versions of the Star Trek theme.
came out, yeah.
And some other things. It was called the Disco Jets, and it was all like space. This was done
so
like 5 years
sizes?
ago. This was 5 or 6 years ago.
Uh-huh.
It was all space disco. Like all the themes were like outer space themes and things like that.
Oh, well, that's all the questions I've got. Thank you for your video.
No problem.
Interview with Roger.
Powell.
Just Roger. 14th of February, Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day.
And to you as well, of the multicolored frothy hair.
Right. Do you think working as part of a band is better for you, or do you prefer solo work?
Well, even if you do, unless you're talking about doing strictly a solo album, totally solo, the way, for instance, Todd did his most recent album.
Healing.
Yeah, which is, I mean, essentially an unusual situation. I mean, most people, even if they do solo albums, they're involved with other musicians. And even if it's not a permanent band, it's at least a band for as long as you're recording. So you always have to deal with other people, you know, in some way. In Utopia, it's not, I mean, you don't have the same freedoms as if you were doing a solo situation, as if you were in a solo situation. But then again, you don't have the same, like, mix of ideas, you know, as well. So they're kind of a trade-off. I would say that, you know, you need both. As a musician, I feel like I need both, and apparently that's, you know, everyone else feels that way in the band, because that's the way the band is structured too. It encourages people to do, you know, things outside the band, their solo projects and whatever.
Now, have you ever appeared live on your own?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, before I joined the band, I did. Not since I've joined the band have I done any solo concerts, but before I did a few concerts. I played in Venezuela, and I did stuff all around the country. When I worked for ARP, I did concerts and demonstrations. Part of it would be a concert, and then I would do a lecture demonstration. So I had done a lot of performing solo with synthesizers with nobody else on the stage, no other musicians, whatever.
Who's your main competitor?
Competitor?
In the synthesizer world.
So there's no one in my class.
You're just being big-headed, or there really isn't.
Well, a little both, I guess. No. I don't think of them as competitors. You see, like, I don't think that we're not competing. We're not really competing that much for space. We're just not competing so much for space. We're all, you know, the more people there are in this field, the more valid the field will be, and the greater it will, you know, expand. So I don't see these people as competitors. I mean, anyone who is in the same business, to me, is like, you know, helping that business to stay alive, you know, and helping that area to stay alive. So I would say that of the people who are in the business who are really good, you know, there's Larry Fast, obviously Wendy Carlos, Isao Tamita. You know, these are people who are, first of all, synthesizer players. Second of all, maybe keyboard players, although several of them have very good keyboard chops. But so I would say that those are the people that I, you know, consider to be in the synthesizer league. You know.
What other musicians do you like?
What other musicians? I like Jan Hammer. I like some stuff that Herbie Hancock does. I like David Bowie a lot.
Is that your taste in music as well? I mean, albums you would go out and buy?
Yes. Yeah, but I just listen to the radio, you know. Like I like the Police. I like a lot of stuff that's out now. Some stuff I don't really particularly care for at all.
What do you like listening to when you're relaxing?
Steely Dan.
What did you think of the Icon magazine?
No, which one are you talking about? The British one?
Icon UK.
Oh yeah, I liked it a lot, and it's very heartwarming, you know, to realize that there's a bunch of people over there who are organized enough to send us these little messages, you know, via this newspaper, and it's very gratifying, and I'm happy that you're doing it.
Keep up the good work.
And keep up the good work. Don't stop, because we need you badly.
Any suggestions to better the magazine?
I don't know. I can't think of anything I would directly criticize. I mean, I think you're doing the best job you can, and that's like, you know, I think it's up to you really to make the magazine what you want. you know. It's like we don't have any guidelines for what the magazine should be. As long as it's responsive to your readers, you know, then you're doing your job very well.
What's your date of birth?
March 14th, 1949.
How has the death of John Lennon affected you, if at all?
It affected me pretty deeply. I was in New York. I was at JFK Airport at a hotel the night it happened. The next morning, Jane and I were flying to Barbados. And the TV was on, and we were just about ready to shut it off and go to sleep. We had to get up early. It was just a little after 11. So I went over to turn it off, and just as I started to turn it off, they said, you know, there's a news bulletin. And they mentioned, you know, they said that he'd been shot and that he had died. And I couldn't move for about, 15 seconds, because at my age, they were the biggest influence musically on me, the biggest pop influence on me musically. So it was just unbelievable to me that, to hear this.
Is there anything lined up for another solo album?
Yes, we've already recorded 6 tracks, and we're in the process of making we're just about to make a deal with a major company. I'm not on, my solo record will not be on, next solo record will not be on Bearsville. I'm off of Bearsville as a solo artist.
Have you got a company that's signed you up yet?
We'll know in about a week and a half which one it's going to be. So you can call me in a week and a half and then you'll know.
Have you got anything lined up to work on anyone else's albums? Like you did with Meatloaf?
No. No, I'm mostly, my projects are all here. Like, I'm going to be working on my album along with Mark Stiles as my protege. That's Styles. He's living in the house that I just moved out of, and we're turning that into a studio. And we're going to probably record most of the album there. And so we're just like writing songs for that. And I've got some other projects lined up, but they're not firm. I know some people who are producing some other albums, and they're looking for songs. So I'm going to be writing songs, and I'm also writing my monthly keyboard column now every month. And I'm writing some computer programs. I'm working on
you're pretty busy.
I'm busy just working at home, which is really the way I try to set it up. I don't really, I enjoy playing live in front of people and that, but I don't enjoy touring for long lengths of time, and I've done that for the last few years, so I'm going to try to avoid that for a little while.
What's your favourite food?
Food? Probably I would say Szechuan food. Szechuan, Hunan Chinese.
And what's your favourite drink?
Drink?
That could be anything.
Beer.
Beer?
Yeah.
English beer, American beer?
Any kind of beer. But American beer.
American beer apparently is a lot weaker than English beer.
Yeah, just, why do you think they call it suds? It really tastes soapy.
What's your favourite colour?
What's my favourite colour? You didn't ask Todd that, did you? What did he say?
A lot. Lots of them. I said, what about purple? I said, that appears to be the band's colour.
Purple is the band's colour?
It appears to be the band's colour in bumper stickers and badges and things. Purple does seem to come out a lot in Utopia.
I haven't been able to pin my favourite colour down. It varies from second to second, depending on whatever's in front of my eyes.
What about your favourite article of clothing?
I don't think about clothing that way. It's more practical. Let's see, what would it be that I'd be fond of? Well, I have a current favorite is is a scarf that I got in New York, which has like all of the colors of the spectrum on it in an optical pattern. I like that.
What's your favourite time of day?
You gotta be kidding.
No.
I really don't have a favorite time of day. I really don't. I don't think about the day that way.
Do you have a favourite Utopia track?
There's probably a favorite Utopia track in there somewhere. Let's see. There's a lot of them, you know.
Yes.
There is a lot of. I don't know. I like Rock Love. I like that one.
Right.
That's just one that comes to my mind. Maybe because I wrote the music before, but it's just
What about
like
your favourite piece of music?
of any piece of music?
Yeah, have you got any favourite piece that you like listening to?
God. How can you narrow it down to one?
That's the trouble we had with the
music?
Utopia Top 10, you see.
Who can like, in this wide world, you can't distill things down to that, you know? It's like saying, what's the meaning of life or something?
42.
Okay.
That's the answer to the meaning of life.
That's my favorite piece of music is 42. Number 42.
Have you any favourite anecdotes?
Anecdotes. Favorite anecdotes that I could tell to
Yeah.
the public.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is one. There's the emergency splashdown anecdote. Some of the readers may be familiar with the tune Emergency Splashdown. It was on a bootleg album that was out, and we did it a lot in England and in the States, and it's also on Air Pocket. But when we did it with the band, we made it appear that the synthesizers were blowing up, catching on fire, or some other dire consequence. It was done by compressed CO2 chambers, which they used as fire extinguishers. And so everywhere we went, we specified that we had to have 2 of these CO2 fire extinguishers. Right, so they could spray the CO2 gas out in the air, and it looks like white smoke. You know, looks like great billowing puffs of white smoke. And so this went along fine, and every night, you know, the sirens would go off, and then the smoke would pour out from looking like it was coming from the back of the synthesizers, and I'd run around like a madman. But then one night, the stage manager actually blew it. And instead of getting a CO2 fire extinguisher, he got a chemical fire extinguisher, which shoots out this chemical dust into the air. It looks sort of like dirty snow. It's like this gray snow. And it's meant to smother the fire physically, you know, rather than with the gas. So the sirens go off, and all of a sudden, all of this gunk starts shooting out into the air. And he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know there's anything wrong, so he keeps shooting this stuff out. I'm trying to sing the song. Willie's trying to breathe. Willie can't breathe. He's breathing in all this chemical fire extinguisher material. And I go back, and nobody can stand up on the stage because it's slick. It's oily and slick. And everyone's like sliding around on the stage, and all our hair, everything's covered with like this soot. And I go back to play my keyboards, and I can't see the keys because they're all covered. It looks like it snowed on the stage. So he was fired after that. That was a favorite anecdote. And another one was when I was touring with David Bowie. We were playing at the Boston Garden, and we're doing, I forget the name of the tune. It's one of the very slow instrumental tunes that he did with Eno. We were redoing. And it's a very ominous, dirge-like sort of piece. And all of a sudden, you know, the lights are all low and the mood is all set and everyone's like into this real somber mood. And all of a sudden, like right in the middle of it, I'm trying to concentrate to coordinate 3 different keyboards. I hear this high-pitched tone, right? And I know it's coming from one of my keyboards. And I can't understand what's happened. The whole mood is destroyed. And David is looking at me like, what's going on? And I'm looking around like, what's going on? Then suddenly I discover what's going on. A rock had been tossed. It went over David's head, hit the top of my string ensemble, broke the top 5 keys off, and made the top note stick on. And this rock then landed on the floor with all these pieces of keyboard and these little tiny splinters of black and white plastic lying all over the floor. And I think there was another rock tossed that night at some point too. He had to stop the show.
That's tough when they do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Really.
So my anecdotes are a bit ironic.
Are you the only child?
No, I have a brother 7 years younger and a sister 14 years younger. I'm the oldest.
Where were you born?
In Front Royal, Virginia.
Where did you live as a child?
In that town. It was a small town of about 8,000 people. The town was bordered with the county, which was mostly farming area.
When did you first get into music?
Well, my father and mother were both interested in music. My mother actually played Baptist hymns on the piano, and my father was a brick mason, but he was an opera fan. So I heard a lot of music in the house from, day one. And then, later on, they got me a piano and they bought me a tape recorder too. So I started working with gadgets and learning music about the same time.
And what did you do when you first left school?
First left high school? I went to, I checked into 2 colleges briefly. First was College of William and Mary, a liberal arts college, and then I couldn't stand that, so I dropped out and went to Richmond to Virginia Commonwealth University, which was, they had a music school division there. And I couldn't stand that, because they were educating people to be music teachers instead of musicians. So I dropped out of that.
Who did you first play with when you started into music?
What do you mean, another musician?
Yeah.
Well, I guess the first musician that I worked with who was, important enough to be, in the industry was Joe South. And he wrote some songs that other people recorded, and he also put out an album where he had a couple of hits off of. Biggest hit was Games People Play. And I engineered that record and met him, and he was the first contact, I guess, I had with the big part of the music business. And that was when I was still just a recording engineer. Later on, musically, the first thing I did was work for myself. I put out my solo album. Was the first thing I ever did, and for my own, as far as me playing music. And then I joined Todd, and the only other thing I've done is David Bowie.
So what were you doing immediately before joining Utopia?
I was doing my solo albums. I had done Cosmic Furnace, and I'd done a few concerts that year, and I was just doing a few lecture demonstrations and that sort of thing.
I see. Now, what's your wife's name?
Jane Mitchell Powell.
Where did you meet her?
I met her at the New Vic in London when we played there.
Where does she come from?
She's from Harefield in Uxbridge, which is Middlesex.
And what does she do for work? Does she work?
She's had her hands full just managing me. She hasn't worked over here. When she was in England, she worked for a recording studio. She was a receptionist there for a while, and she also worked for a fashion company. Over here, she's just been keeping our home together. And now she just started, because she hasn't gotten her driver's license, but she's just started now she's done some temporary work for the Perrier company in New York. So her friend works for Perrier. You'll meet her, Karen.
Right. Where was the most memorable concert for you? where you were overwhelmed with the reception that the fans gave you?
We played, what was the name of that place? I can't think of the name of this. It's this place in Ohio we played one summer, and all the other bands that opened for us had hit records on the charts, but we were the headline act of the show for some reason, and we had about 55,000 people there, and that was pretty gratifying to know that they were all there, mostly because of us. I can't think of the name of the place though. Legend Valley, Ohio. The second thing was not that everyone was there to see us, and not that everyone responded enthusiastically, but the Nebworth festivals, both of those that we played, were that was pretty astonishing situation to play in front of over 200,000 people.
What do you see for the future in music?
I think music's going to probably fade out next couple of years.
And what will replace it?
Direct electrode input to the brain.
Science fiction.
No.
For nonsense.
No. People used to ask me, do you think synthesizers are here to stay? Like when synthesizers first came out. And I would answer them with, do you think music is here to stay? So, you can just expect, more and more of the same and more of the different. I don't know, you can't really pinpoint it. It's so splintered and fractured now. Everybody, it used to be, like 10 years ago, you could pretty much pick a category of music and that was the category you liked, right? There wasn't all these crossovers, you either liked country music or you liked rock or you liked, a psychedelic or you liked jazz. But now now you got psychedelic, jazz, country,
Yeah.
and country, heavy metal, rock, pop, and pop, jazz,
confused.
country, and all that. So it's just too splintered up, and it's just going to keep going that way. It's just that it's the same thing, though. It's people, the same artists are still there in the music business who were there, 15, 20 years ago. And it's just they change enough and they get, new songs and good songs and just keep going.
Have you got a favourite film?
I'm not one on favorites, I'll tell you that.
Is there a film that you'd go and see again?
Yeah, there's probably a lot of them I'd like to go and see again. I like Jack Nicholson films. What he's in. I like Woody Allen films.